Minister Artis Pabriks, thank you so much for, again, taking time to sit down to chat with us about some very important world events. What took place in Poland the other day? There was a missile that crashed there, and there's been discussion about where it came from. What are your thoughts, and what do you know about that, sir?
Well, one thing is, what are our thoughts about? The second is the question about facts. And as far as facts, we of course have to rely on the people on the ground who are simply investigating the situation and delivering these facts. But we must not be also over-conscious thinkers, which means we can also reflect on the realities, and the reality is very simple. We would not discuss this question for 3 days if there would not be a Russian invasion and Russian missile attacks on the civilian objects in Ukraine. Namely, even if this missile is a self-defense or air defense missile of Ukrainian forces, the blame and the guilt solely lies on the Russian aggressors, because they are instinctively and disproportionately firing on neighboring nation. And if there would not be a Russian missile fire, simply would not be this discussion, and also would not be those poor 2% of Polish citizens on the NATO territory. But probably you do have also the question, what's next? And if I have to contemplate about the future, I would say that taking into account the merciless Russian aggression, we cannot 100% guarantee that such, let's say, victim situations doesn't appear again and again if Russians are sending their missiles on Ukraine and so close to our NATO borders. Namely, my first answer would be we have to bolster, first of all, our own missile defense so that we can take out as much as possible. Secondly, we have to provide Ukrainians with all the means to defend their families, their houses, their civilian population, and their country until this aggression is not finished from the Russian side. And looking from the practical perspective, I understand that people do not want, or politicians or experts maybe do not want to consider this fully. But I think if we really want to guarantee the full security of NATO territory, we somehow have to take into consideration also the nearest areas of Ukrainian territory. Because if Russians are targeting something which is, let's say, few kilometers away, let's say, from the Polish border, there is simply no guarantee that Ukrainian air defense can take it out timely. And if we are not prepared to do it from our side, then again, we can lose simply some population on our side. And this is unacceptable.
I was in Riga not long ago at the Riga conference, and you and other very prominent global ministers and security experts were discussing this very problem. And I wonder, do you think Russia is getting the message from the NATO neighbors and from the rest of the world, or is Russia ignoring the message?
It depends which part of the message. I think that there must be a certain confusion and deep thoughts also on the Russian side about the future of this war in general. Of course, neither me nor probably most of the people around the world, we do not know what exactly is in the belly of that bloody bear on the Russian side. But I think we should not underestimate the intellectual capacity also of the Russian leadership. And obviously, they must understand that they cannot win this war. So they must look for some kind of solution, for some attempt to find the way out of this. At this moment, obviously, they are still looking for the solution, by extending pressure on Ukraine and the West. What do they expect from the West? They expect that the resilience of the Western societies is falling. Like in this case, for instance, or we in the West, we would start to doubt our support to Ukraine or have various opinions, or our societies will get tired simply of supporting Ukraine because energy is costing a lot and food prices are rising, and inflation, and etc. So they're still hoping that somehow we will tremble. Just like they're hoping that Ukrainian civilians will tremble because they will freeze, or they would not have energy or light or something like this. We must give them a very straight message back, because this is the truth, that neither we nor Ukrainians will tremble. They must look for the answer in their own direction, in their own country. And then probably we will come to some kind of a conclusion that they are ready to sit at the table, discuss the troop withdrawal, and end of this unnecessary war.
Do you believe that this war at this point realistically runs the risk of spreading to the NATO community? Do you think that maybe what happened the other day was a wake-up call to Russia about this? Was there some concern and confusion and worry that if they were facing the entire NATO community, that maybe this would be the worst thing that could happen? Do you get the sense that this war still, after what happened earlier this week, could expand?
Well, you see, we in the defense sector, we always must consider the possible worst option. However, I do not think that even Putin and his close aides or leadership in Russia really want a war with NATO, because they can't win this war. Russia cannot sustain this. If they would like to blow up the globe, well, I don't think that's also in their interest. So there must be some rationale behind them, because they are at the end rational people. They made a number of mistakes by starting this war, by underestimating the weakness of the Western countries, because we have been actually giving signals all the time that we are weak. We are not willing to engage in any kind of conflict. And in Russian eyes and Russian logic, this is a pure weakness. Now, if we give a quite and let's say strong signal back that we are not afraid of Russia, and that they will be the ones who will bear the consequences, they would not have the wish to expand this conflict, except by some kind of accident where, of course, both sides at the end can restrain themselves. So I would rather say no, but at the same time, we must be ready to say to Russians in their face, if you want the war, you can get it, and we will win you. So in no way we should retreat once we are standing on the front of bully. We know it from our school times, at least we do it here. We know it from our experience with Russians for decades and centuries. And this is what most of Western, let's say, peaceful societies must grasp also now. Better later than never.
Do you see Latvia? Well, let me put it this way. Where does Latvia stand on its defense right now in terms of dealing with Russia, in terms of dealing with any threat? I know that you spend quite a bit of time focusing on the NATO partnership, but you know, there are things that have to happen internally, training, engaging with your partners around the world. And, you know, while I was there, I happened to meet up with the Canadian delegation, part of the task force Latvia there. So how would you characterize those kinds of activities right now taking place inside Latvia?
Well, we are a border country with Russia. And obviously, if we would live in a wishful and wonderful world, like Armstrong was singing, then we would wish that Russia would be a democratic, peaceful country. We could trade, we could make money, we could make, let's say, anything would happen in a beautiful way, but this is not a reality. So looking from that perspective, we assume that regardless of the outcome of this war, Russia will remain in a midterm threat to us and threat to our neighbors. And we are not the only ones who think so, because otherwise such countries as Sweden or Finland wouldn't join NATO. Now, taking this perspective into account, we are trying to do anything to present ourselves as far as defense and security as a hedgehog. So we are small, you can overrun us, but it would be extremely painful and extremely costly for you. Because of this, we are increasing our military budget to 3% from GDP. We already have been introducing military education in our gymnasiums and high schools. We are starting from the next year again also a compulsory service along with professional service. And of course, we are looking for support to our allies, first of all, United States, but in general, NATO countries and Canada also, as far as supplies of different type of weaponry, what our army also needs. So we also have been putting a lot of investments in the last 5 years in our military industry. So we are ready not to take chances. We are ready to sell our lives as expensive as possible. But it's all done not because we want war, but because we think that this is a very correct strategy of deterrence to avoid the war.
Very interesting, sir. Thank you. One final question about this: the relationship with the U.S. How would you describe the current relationship and discussions and importance of the relationship with the U.S.?
Any relationship in the world, either between people or countries, is based on the trust and previous historic experience. Up to now, United States have been very honest and trustworthy partner which never betrayed us, and we hope that also in future such a relationship will prevail.
Thank you. Last thing, this has been a national week of celebrations for you, and I have no experience with this, so can you can you just describe briefly what's been going on this week?
Well, our Week of Patriots, as we describe this, it is comprised of two historic dates, 11th of November and 18th. One date represents the establishment or proclamation of our free democratic nation many years ago, 104 years ago. And this is like an idea which was confirmed, like in a church, we confirm our faith. So we confirmed on the next date with our armed forces and our independence war and with our victories that we trust in our country. And we have a very, very huge support now in general, patriotic support from our public for our country. So today we had a national military parade, which people were greeting, and we are ready to do anything that our younger generations never experienced, what we experienced before with Russian or Nazi invasion.
Well, Minister, good luck, congratulations, and hope you have a great celebration and continue moving forward. And I look forward to talking to you again, perhaps in Washington or in Riga or in the next place. Thank you.
Thank you for this call, and thank you for our great relationship between Latvia and US. Good luck.
Thank you.